Good morning. Here is my assessment of Cyril Ramaphosa's speech last night. Now, it was no secret what he actually wanted to do. There were longer deliberations, obviously. There was a lot of fight back for what he was about to do, and there was a lot of political influence. He was supposed to release his information on the 15th, but rather chose to do it on the 16th. Which means that many more fights took place behind the scenes. The curfew was supposed to be lifted completely, but there is still a curfew in place. And as I work through the speech, I'll give my take on everything that was said. Some things I'll just leave out because it's totally irrelevant and gibberish and garbage. But I've got 23 points to cover, so this might take a while, but hopefully it won't be too painful. So, firstly, what did he look like? It looks like he has stopped caring. There was no sweat on his face or anything like that. He looked absolutely numb and dead. And it means one simple thing, that he's just going through the motions right now. The speech was written politically, that I can tell you now. This was a political speech. It wasn't as well polished. And some very big mistakes were made in there. So I believe that the speech was written by someone in the African National Congress, the ruling party, and some of his personal advisors. And what this means is that we are now in the election phase. This is where we're at. And for the first time, he actually mentioned the IEC in his speech and said that the IEC officers will now be able to register people to vote, which means this has become a focal point now in the debate and the discussions, and will remain so until next year's local government elections. So the first point that I wrote down is he said that we've been in lockdown for 6 months as if it's our fault, and that 15,000 people have succumbed from the coronavirus, and that there's 650,000 registered cases or people that have tested positive for the SARS-CoV-2 virus with a test that the inventor of the test said can't be used to verify that the SARS-CoV-2 virus is present. So just a footnote there. And my take on that is he's trying to create the reason for everything else that's going to follow. And the next thing he says is that the economy has been hard hit and society has been hard hit with this pandemic. No, what he should say is that the government imposed things on society that made them believe that they should hit themselves hard because they didn't have to comply with anything he said. If the public carried on with their lives as per normal, even businesses, there's nothing that he could do. We followed suit, and this is a very important thing to understand. And I make this clear in my meetings. And he says that we withstood the storm. What storm? I want to know what storm we withstood. These are all catchphrases that is part of a script that is being used worldwide, and I'm quite frankly sick and tired of it by now. Because I didn't see any storm anyway. The entire storm was created by his army of social media and mainstream media warmongers. That's where the storm came from. There was no storm on the ground. Certainly not. Because if he called that a storm, what should he call the tuberculosis cases and deaths during this time? That we know is way more than 40,000. What do you call that then? A total disaster. I don't know what he would call it. He says we now have an 89% recovery rate. And what he doesn't say by that is that many people are still recovering. So of the total cases that has been registered, that's suspicious to begin with, that 89% have recovered. It doesn't mean that 11% died. It means that they haven't recovered yet. And he says this will climb to 98% soon. Now, he obviously doesn't understand maths. To go from 89 to 98% is a massive shift. Huge. Point number 5. He said that thousands of lives were saved because of this. He doesn't speak of the thousands of lives that were lost because the focus was on something that wasn't as deadly as they claimed it to be. That's what he doesn't say. Thousands of people literally committed suicide, Mr. President. So quantify your thousands of lives saved. It's like people saying that tens of thousands of people rocked up at a march, when you can clearly see that there's 500 people there. Then he says the World Health Organization gave a strengthened response for South Africa and strengthened our response, the World Health Organization, and he thanked them. They are an unelected body that he listened to as an elected leader through a crooked system. He says that the World Health Organization sent their top experts to South Africa. Their top experts. Why are their top experts coming here? Because we are the experimentation station for the rest of the world. That's why. And then he thanked Tedros, the head of the World Health Organization, that complete buffoon, and the African Union, which he chairs. And he said because South Africa chairs the African Union, we could get them to agree that we need to get vaccines to the entire continent, and I'll get to that later. Point number 8. He says we are still in the midst of a deadly epidemic, not a pandemic, epidemic. That's what he called it. Interesting choice of words. Go and look up the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic. And you'll see, maybe they'll start changing this narrative because they don't meet the requirements for a pandemic anymore. This is the first admission of that. Fascinating, isn't it? Point number 9. We must prevent a new surge or second wave. Now, I don't have to speak about a second wave. They speak about the second wave all the time. Our president is speaking about a second wave. The World Health Organization is speaking about a second wave. Billy Goat Gates is speaking about a second wave. What do they mean by this? I wonder if any of them will actually qualify what they mean by a second wave. Scripted, handled all over the world in exactly the same way. Scripted. Then he says that South Africa will start to increase testing for the SARS-CoV-2 virus. He calls it COVID-19 testing. He's an idiot. You can't test for COVID-19. You can only test for the virus. Considering that the person that invented the PCR test says that it cannot be used for that. But let's just stick with the narrative for now. Then, the big hoo-ha. He announces the COVID Alert app. Okay? You will be alerted via this app, but he says the app is safe. Like you should use a condom. This is a safe app. And the very important thing in what he says here is the fact that he says that you cannot be followed or traced with this app. That is what makes it safe. But it can tell you if you're within the proximity of someone that has tested positive for the virus. Now, this was the same as in his last speech when he actually said that all the money that was spent for COVID-19 relief got to its end recipients, and in the very next sentence he says that there was huge malpractice and people stole, and a special unit of inquiry was put together, the special investigative unit, to actually investigate all the corruption and fraud with regards to getting money to the people. Whoever wrote the speech wanted to set him up, and here it happens again. So the COVID-19 Alert app is completely safe, he says. You cannot be monitored, tracked and traced with it. But in the next sentence he says, yes, it will tell you when you've come into close proximity of someone else. And later he states that we should stay 1.5 meters apart. 1.5 meters exactly. Not 2 meters, not 1 meter. Then he says that there's a WhatsApp system and an SMS system to also tell people if they've come into contact with someone that has tested positive for the virus. Okay, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And this WhatsApp system has been there for a long time. It's a pimping system. That's all it is. Where you go and pimp on other people. So you become part of the state policing system. Then point number 12. He speaks of a nationwide survey for antibodies. In other words, they're going to start antibody testing to see how many people have already had the virus. Now, I know this happened in the USA months ago, and one of the doctors there actually said that based on his test, that 80% of the population had already had it and had no idea that they had had the virus because it had no effect on them. No symptoms were displayed. And then he said that this is absolutely a nonsense story and that we've made a big hoo-ha out of nothing. And he was censored for it. Those videos were taken down wherever they were placed. But we don't have a police state. Then he speaks about vaccines. Vaccines is very next on the agenda, and how he made sure through the African Union that there will be priority for us for vaccines, that we are developing our own vaccine, and that we're involved in other countries' vaccine trials. They don't try it there, they come here and try it on our people. This is how it works. The United Kingdom in cahoots with South Africa. If you come to my meetings, you will understand that we had the exact same lockdown levels as them, that they actually prescribed how we do things, because we are run from the United Kingdom. We always have been since they arrived here in 1820. And I will explain that in detail in my meetings, if you come to any of my meetings. And then he speaks about alert level 1, that we're now going to alert level 1. We've been at alert level 1, the original alert level 1, for a very long time. So all this is a way to give candy back in people's minds, but then take something else from you. In fact, take everything from you, your freedom, through an app. Think about that for a moment. And he calls this level the new normal. So no level 0, level 1. This is the new normal. Can you believe it? Still no people watching sport in stadiums? No. Many other things you're not allowed to do. A curfew. Are we going to have a curfew permanently? He says that alert level 1 is the new normal, and they will define what that is as they go along. The man is insane, and anyone that wants to follow this is insane. I don't want to live in the same world as you. You're not my friend, you're my enemy. Okay, let's make that clear. Then he announces in point 15 that now you can have 250 people indoor and 500 people outdoor, but you're only allowed 50% of the venue capacity. Now this actually makes it worse than before. Before you could put 50 people in a venue, now you can only put 25 people in a venue that can only fit 50 people. They want to put people out of business. This is what this is about, so that you can literally bow down to everything else that's coming very soon, and you can watch this space. Okay, all travelers are to install the COVID Alert mobile app. So the COVID Alert mobile app is to be installed by all travelers from other countries. So if you come to South Africa, you will also have to put in the app. No option there, people. No option. Okay. Then the curfew is changed from 12 at night till 4 in the morning. So we are still being treated like children. They can't just go and police venues that are clubbing in the early hours of the morning. No. And people will carry on doing this and they will do nothing about it. Normal people are curfewed now. You can't go to the shop at night for whatever reason. You can't go to the garage shop or anything like that. You're treated like a child. Then he speaks about the Solidarity Fund. Just remember, these curfews are to control you, to make you feel like the state controls you and that they care for you. Those of you that are foolish enough to believe this. The Solidarity Fund, he says they received 300,000 donations from 15,000 individuals, 2,500 companies. And they received 3.1 billion. Now, once again, this does not add up. 15,000 individuals, 2,500 companies, adds up to 17,500 contributions. But they received 300,000 donations. I don't know who make up the rest. And 3.1 billion was raised. And of the 3.1 billion, 2.4 billion was used for the COVID-19 response. And he also said it was used for gender-based violence. So I don't know who is supposed to decide what this fund would be used for. I have no idea. So at the moment, there's still 700 million available for something. I have no idea what they're going to spend this on, but I'm sure this has been a looting and racketeering session of note. Then he speaks about the gender-based violence response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So he brings gender-based violence into this because there's been some protests around this. And he knows he needs to do something, or he's going to have to face people in future again. He's going to have to face people like Debbie Els, who's led gender-based violence marches in the past, and many other people, student organizations and so on, and other gender-based violence organizations that have gone to Parliament and protested there. And you'll famously know how our police were pulling women by their arms when they are protesting against gender-based violence and throwing them into the back of police vans. This is how our government responds to things like this. Then he speaks about the corruption that's been exposed. He doesn't make the mistake to say again that all the money got to the people first. And that the Special Investigation Unit has given their first report to him. Now, he said originally that they will report him every 2 weeks. It means that they should have given him 2 reports by now, but this hasn't happened. So, first problem, only 1 report submitted, which means that his Special Investigative Unit aren't doing such a good job. And he said the findings will be made public. He also said, so we need to hold him accountable for this, but it's totally irrelevant in the big scheme of things. We need to remove and replace his government system, this governance system, as fast as possible, get a new electoral system in place, and then elect our leaders directly, one by one, as soon as we can. And we need to make sure this is done in a proper system. If we don't do this properly, it'll be a complete mess. Just remember that. Then I'm getting to my last 3 points now. He says that in public, you have to wear masks. You have to stay 1.5 meters apart from other people, 1.5 meters. You have to sanitize your hands all the time. Here's the best. He says you must download the COVID Alert app. Must. Cyril, a must is on a ship. Okay. A good friend of mine, Polish friend of mine, used to say that. There's no such thing as must. A must is on a ship. So he says we must download the COVID Alert app. Are they going to force us to do this? Let's see what happens. There's a line drawn in the sand, Cyril. I drew that line a long time ago. Then he thinks he's funny. And I won't support this dance because of this. He says everyone must go and practice a Jerusalem dance. Now anything that he endorses, I can't endorse. I'm sorry. So let's go and invent another dance. The get rid of current government dance. So some artists, please come up with something. Come up with something for direct elections. Come up with some dance that we can start performing that is not the Jerusalem. Because he's trying to get behind us now, making as if he's funky, but we must stay at home from 12 to 4. He's dictating to us how we will live our lives. He's a dictator. He's actually a mental patient. That's what he should be. 23. He says that they have overcome doubt and cynicism. Now, what is this supposed to mean? What doubt and cynicism is he speaking about? Doubt and cynicism has been everywhere since the beginning of this pandemic. So he's trying to say something as if it's true when it's not. The public, Mr. President, is doubting and they are cynical about everything you do. Everything you do. Because you've lost your mind. You are literally listening to other people telling you how to run the country of which you should be the president. You've been sworn in to protect our Constitution. You've trampled all over the Bill of Rights. You've trampled all over the Constitution. And now you want to say that we've managed to overcome the doubters and those that are cynical. You've lost your mind completely. You need to go back to your school days and think when you were still heading the Christian Union at school and you maybe had some morals and some proper beliefs. Think about those days and think about what you are doing now. Not the fancy friends you're eating caviar with after the scenes and after you've stopped your pathetic speech. Think about those days. They're going to come back to haunt you. And the people of this country are going to haunt you for what you've done to this economy and to their livelihoods. You're a madman. There's so many mad people in governments around the world. Mad. They belong in institutions. And the public will be the verdict. And it'll happen at the polls. It's the only place where we are allowed to practice our right as citizens in a fake democracy is at the polls. And many of you might say, but it has absolutely no meaning. Well, it's the only way you're going to do things without war in this country. And for those of you that want war, I want you to stand in the front lines and take the first bullet. Okay? Your large mouth on social media. Go and stand in the front lines. Prove your steel. Don't hide behind comments on YouTube and on Facebook. Okay, come out into the open. Let people see you and see what they do to you for saying what you're saying. Come, be brave. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please share this with other people. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. And click the bell icon to get notifications for more videos. Later today, I will be doing an interview with a general practitioner, a doctor that wants to tell a story. And I really feel sorry for GPs that feel like they can't speak out. But this doctor is brave enough to speak out, and I'll bring that to you later today. Thank you very much for watching. Till the next video.